Michigan State's Jalen Watts Jackson.
20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis.
Oh, my God.
Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game. Auburn's going to win the football game.
Welcome to the last regular season recap of the 2023 college football season. I appreciate you guys for being with me through the entire season. It has been one could say probably the quickest college football season of all time. At least that's what it felt like for me. And maybe that's because I'm doing this now. Just time flies when you're having fun. And I think that a lot of you feel the exact same way with this college football season. It was a fun season. We've only got, about a month left, a couple weeks in there. We won't have any games. So it's going to be a longer month because there's not as many games, but a lot of these games will mean a lot more than the games that we have been playing in the past couple of weeks. But we're here for the Rivalry Weekend recap. That's what you guys tuned in for the show, so that's what I'm going to give you guys. So a lot went down. Week 13, Rivalry Weekend. We had games on Thanksgiving, we had games on Black Friday, and we had games on Saturday. A lot of games you had from the game itself, Ohio State, Michigan, all the way to the Iron Bowl down there in Alabama, to the Apple Cup up in Washington, all the way down to Hawaii, where the Colorado State Rams lost to the Hawaii Warriors on a last-second field goal, snapped with about 0.2 seconds left on the clock. Incredible stuff. There were good games all over the entire country this weekend, and Rivalry Weekend delivered. It absolutely delivered. The talk going into this weekend was, is Rivalry Weekend going to deliver? Has the season been underperforming up until now? And I told you guys last weekend, it hadn't been. It's been an incredible season, and we've all enjoyed it. It's been fun. And college football saved the best week of football for the last week in the regular season. I mean, I can't imagine a better day of football than what we watched yesterday on the couch sitting there all day. I can't imagine a better day of football than what we saw yesterday. From the beginning of the games at 11 a.m. all the way to the night games, well into the night, past midnight with the Hawaii-Colorado State game. It was great game after great game this weekend, and if you didn't watch any of them, that's a real bummer. Go back and watch as many as you can, because all of these games, for the most part, obviously you'll have your stinkers in there every weekend, but for the most part, all of these games were just, wow. I can't imagine a better weekend of college football. Some of you out there, depending on what your team did this weekend, depending on how it went for your team, I know my team, some of the implications for my team, some people were out there having tears. Some people had tears because their team's season is coming to an end and they're not going to get to watch them play football until next September, next late August, maybe 2024, late August, early September. Some people aren't going to watch their team play until then. Some people were having tears of joy. Maybe you're a Michigan fan who was out there just celebrating on the field yesterday. That could be just tears of joy because you beat Ohio State for the third year in a row, and you showed Ryan Day who's boss without your own coach. That could be you guys having tears of joy. I know some people were having tears of sadness, and I know I'll be having some tears of sadness here in a couple weeks when college football season is officially over. But we had a lot of questions, coming into the last year. Are we going to get our upset weekend? Will we get the upset weekend? And I thought maybe it's going to culminate. Maybe Rivalry Weekend and Upset Weekend are going to happen at the exact same time. Maybe we're going to get them at the same time to end the year. And we were close. We were really, really close going into yesterday. We had a lot of close games. You had, obviously there in the morning game, you had Ohio State coming down to the wire versus Michigan. Could they upset Michigan? And they didn't. They didn't. Spoiler if you hadn't watched that game. Then you had in the afternoon games, you had BYU was up 18 basically the entire game against the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Also in the afternoon slate, you had Auburn somehow lose that game against Alabama. We'll talk about that game later. And then in the night games, you also had in the 2:30 games, you also had Washington State, the Apple Cup come down to the wire in that game. We'll talk about it here in a second. And then you also had in the night games, you had Florida State with a couple backup QBs battling it out down there in Florida. So all of these games, they were close. Did the team upset the favored team? No, it didn't happen. But that doesn't mean we didn't get incredible football, and that doesn't mean that this wasn't the best weekend of the entire year, because it was. Now, one thing that has been the theme of this entire year is we've been very, very close with all these upsets, but these teams at the top continue to win. They continue to find a way, whatever it might be. Maybe that's just how this college football season is going to go, and we're just going to get Georgia for a third straight national championship. I mean, that's a story. That's a great, great story. So you can't deny that. But the theme this year, bar none, has been teams that are favored to win have just found a way to win. That's been the theme. We've been close, but we haven't gotten to those upsets yet. Now, the team that embodies this the most, and where I want to start the show with today, is the Washington Huskies. Okay? Week after week after week after week after week after week, the Washington Huskies continue to find a way to win the football game. I'm sitting here watching this game yesterday against the Washington State Cougars, the Apple Cup, the last running of the Apple Cup in Pac-12 play. And a moment of silence here for the Pac-12 here, guys. So if you're listening on podcast, yes, we do podcast now. So go over to Spotify and subscribe, like it, leave a 5-star review. I can say all of that now because we're on podcast. So moment of silence here for the Pac-12. Last year, the Pac-12, we'll just give them their moment here. Okay. Sorry, Pac-12. It's been nice knowing you, but we're on to greener pastures. Okay, so the Apple Cup. This was a fun game to watch, guys. I don't know if you were watching it, but I was watching it. I was watching all the games yesterday because I was taking in all of the action, okay? So it was kind of back and forth. Not really fourth, but it was back and then a bounce back with Washington State. Washington led the entire game, except for when they were tied. Washington would score, Washington State would score. Washington would score, Washington State would score. Washington would score, Washington State would score. That was the theme of the game. Washington never led this game by more than 7, and they ended up winning by 3 on a last-second field goal by Grady Gross, is, I believe, the kicker's name up there in Washington. Nailed a 40-yard field goal to win the game, and he got put on scholarship after the game in the locker room there. So that was a cool moment for him, for the entire Washington football team. So moments like that right there, why we love college football. Moments like that. You kick a game-winning field goal, boom, scholarship. Now, I have a hunch that even if he missed, he was going to be on scholarship. Now, I don't think they would have put him on scholarship right after he missed that field goal. Maybe they would have done it later on in the week. But it's a good thing he made that field goal because it made that moment a little sweeter for the entire football team. But the moment here, guys, the thing to talk about in this game is how Washington continues to win football games. Ever since that Oregon game, ever since they beat Oregon, beat a very, very good Oregon team at home, ever since then, every week since then has just been an absolute grind for the old Huskies up there in Washington. Every week, 6 straight weeks since that win, it's been, are we gonna win this game? Is it gonna happen? Are we gonna win this game in the fourth quarter? That's the question. Every single week since then, are we gonna do it? Are we gonna do it? Sure enough, you get 2 minutes left in the game. They're like, oh, okay, hey, we're gonna do it. We're gonna win this football game. That's the theme of the Washington Huskies. Now, is that going to continue in the Pac-12 championship game, maybe into the playoffs? If it does, wow, how do they keep doing it? There's just a magic about this team right now. And I think that's true. I think there is a magic just about the Washington Huskies right now. I don't know how they continue to do it, but they continue to win. And I think probably the biggest reason they continue to win in the theme in all of these games that they continue to win is this one man that they continue to get the football to. You're probably thinking, well, it's Michael Penix Jr., that guy's been balling out all year. Every time he touches the football, magic happens. Well, you could say Michael Penix Jr. because he's the quarterback. But the guy I want to go to, the guy that I think is the stud of their football team, that's Rome Odunze. Rome Odunze, probably the second best wide receiver in all of college football, right behind Marvin Harrison Jr., who we'll talk about a little later in the show. Rome Odunze did it again yesterday. He basically single-handedly won this football game for the Washington Huskies. Rivalry game. He basically won it for them. This man, 7 catches, 120 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, Washington only scored 24 points. They won the game with 24 points. And if you watch this game, if Rome Odunze isn't on this football field, I don't think Washington wins that football game. I don't know how they don't win the football game against a pretty average to less than average defense for the Washington State Cougars, who finished Pac-12 conference play 2-7. Not great. I'm not entirely sure how Washington continues to struggle. They just play to their opponent is what it looks like, because Oregon State's a way better team than Washington State. So every week, whoever they're playing, they're going to play to them. And I think we're going to get a competitive football game in the Pac-12 championship game against Oregon, because that connection with Michael Penix Jr. and Rome Odunze, it doesn't matter who they're going up against. It's stellar, and it's going to get the job done, okay? That connection is deadly. Whenever Michael Penix Jr. is in trouble, whenever the Washington Huskies are in trouble, Michael Penix drops it back in the pocket. Who am I going to throw to? Boom, Rome Odunze. He's going to make a play for me. Rome Odunze, that's who I'm getting the ball to. The Washington Huskies do what I think the Ohio State Buckeyes should have done with Marvin Harrison Jr. They force feed the ball to Rome Odunze. It doesn't matter what it's looking like out there. They're getting it to Rome Odunze. They don't do that with Marvin Harrison. Maybe it's a quarterback problem because Kyle McCord can't throw the ball particularly well. We'll talk about it here in a little bit. But Washington, congratulations to you guys. Congratulations to you guys. You finished your season undefeated. Very hard to do with how many good teams, good solid teams the Pac-12 had this year. Very impressive stuff. Congrats to you guys finishing the season undefeated, winning the Apple Cup for the last time in the Pac-12. I like what I see. And we'll have a good preview for you and Oregon this weekend in the Pac-12 championship game. Okay, next game on the agenda. You're probably thinking you're going Iron Bowl. Well, it's already down there in the bottom quarter. But for the podcast listeners, we're going to the Iron Bowl. We're going to the Iron Bowl. Now, let me take a sip here so you might hear some silence there in the podcast. I spilled some water there. No big deal. No big deal. Drink your water, by the way. It tastes good, and it's good for you. Okay, the Iron Bowl. Now, I watched all this game, and I don't really want to spend too much time just on the game itself. It was a good game, good solid game, back and forth. Auburn showed a lot of fight. Alabama showed some resilience to win this football game when I don't really think they should have ended up winning this football game. And most people know why, because of how this game ended. Now, there is something I do want to talk about, and that's how Auburn even stayed in this football game. How did they even put up with Alabama Crimson Tide? How did they even do it? Well, for the first time all year, a team figured out how to run the ball on the Crimson Tide. I don't know how they did it. From what I saw, it looked like Alabama wasn't fitting their gaps particularly well, and also Auburn was blocking it very, very well. They were on their blocks. They were getting to the second level of their blocks, but it also looked like Alabama wasn't fitting their gaps. So that's probably it, but it doesn't really matter because Auburn did it. They ran the ball extremely well on Alabama. Now, is that concerning going forward for Alabama? Yeah, I think it could be. Now, they probably only have one game left in their season no matter what. But Auburn ran the ball for 250 yards yesterday. Nobody's done that all year in Alabama. It was a shock to my system because I didn't think that was all. Auburn's offense all year has been running the ball. That's all they've been able to do. I didn't think they would be able to do it because Alabama hasn't let anybody do it all year. So it was a shock to my system to see the Auburn Tigers figure out how to do that against Alabama. Now, if they have a competent passing offense, Auburn probably wins this football game. Let me tell you something about their quarterbacks. Their passing game yesterday combined for a whopping 93 passing yards. I'm just going to say that again. A whopping 93 passing yards through the air for a Division I SEC offense. You throw for 93 yards. Now, I understand that you were having success on the ground, but you can't just throw for 93 yards and expect to beat Alabama. You can't do it. You can't do it, and yet they almost did it, okay? Now, let's get into the end of this game because that's what everybody wants to hear about. That's what the whole world was talking about yesterday on Twitter, and I was in shock in my kitchen. I was standing there thinking, wow, Auburn really did it. The first major upset of today, we had it. Auburn knocked off Alabama. And sure enough, let's get into what happened. Let's get into what happened before I go into what I was thinking standing there in my kitchen. Auburn muffed a punt. They forced Alabama to punt with about 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes left in the football game. They muffed it about their own 30-yard line. Alabama recovered. And they set up Alabama with great field position, probably to go win the football game with the touchdown because they were down 24-20. So Bama needs a touchdown, okay? Auburn, you can't let them score. They let them get down to the 7-yard line. First and goal, Alabama has the ball with about a minute left in the game. They don't do anything on first down, okay? So we got 2nd and goal from the 7. Boom. Center snaps it over Jalen Milroe's head. Looked like Jalen Milroe maybe wasn't ready for the snap yet. Goes all the way back to the 30-yard line. Not great if you're Alabama, okay? Not great. So you got 3rd and goal from your 30. You need a touchdown to win the football game. So pretty obvious, hey, we got to throw a touchdown to win this game. Okay? 3rd and goal, Jalen Milroe sitting back there. Auburn rushes 3. Doesn't look like they're trying to get to him. They're just trying to play this little shell. Don't let it get in the end zone. Jalen Milroe scrambles out of the pocket. He's doing his thing, doing what Jalen Milroe does, and he runs past the line of scrimmage and throws the football. Now, for those of you that are new to college football, you can't do that. You can't run past the line of scrimmage and throw the football. That is a penalty. And it is also a loss of down. So instead of getting 3rd down again, and Auburn probably would have declined the penalty. They would have accepted the penalty because it was a completion down to the 5-yard line. So instead of just a 5-yard penalty and redoing 3rd down, it was a loss of down and a 5-yard penalty. So Alabama is now at the 32-yard line, 33-yard line is what I think it was. 4th and goal, 30 seconds left. They have to throw it into the end zone to win this football game. And what does Auburn do? Does Auburn bring the house? They got to get this football out of Jalen Milroe's hands quick. That's what you got to do. You got to make sure he didn't have time to sit back there and see a gap in the defense down there in the end zone and throw perfect football. You got to get some pressure on him, right? That's what I was thinking. And then sure enough, I'm watching this unfold. Jalen Milroe's standing back there. Auburn's bringing 2 dudes. They're bringing 2 dudes. Now, if you know anything, trying to rush 2 guys against 5 offensive linemen with seemingly no stud on the outside, no first-round draft pick out there for Auburn on the outside, on the edge. It's not going to end well for your football team. And sure enough, Jalen Milroe gets about 35 seconds, what it seemed like, sitting there in my kitchen, standing there watching this. I'm like, wow, he's back there forever. I basically baked a cake in the amount of time he had back there. He's sitting back there. What does he do? We're going to do the play call that we have. I'm going to throw it to the back corner of the end zone, and Isaiah Bond is going to be there, and he's going to catch this, and we're going to win this football game. And I'm going to ask for the Heisman after this. Not rightfully so, but I respect it from Jalen Milroe. He did it. He threw it to him. Isaiah Bond caught it in the back of the end zone. Maybe a little bit of a push-off. I don't care, because that's what college football is about right there. There's some sort of magic grass under Auburn. Maybe some magic dirt. Maybe some Johnny Appleseed stuff going on. Johnny Appleseed. What's the big James and the Giant Peach, maybe? Where they get that seed and they get that big sprout up to the sky and they, meet the giant and whatnot. If you're just now tuning in, you're like, what is he talking about? Well, I'm talking about the magic grass in Auburn, Alabama. What do they have under that field? There's something under that field that just makes crazy, crazy things happen. 10 years ago, we had the Kick Six, which is the intro to this podcast, this very podcast. We had that, and then 10 years later, we get one of the wildest endings to a football game that I've ever seen. Now, this can only happen in the Iron Bowl. They've got that magic dirt, that magic grass, whatever it is, that magic dust in the air over in Auburn, over at the Iron Bowl. You have that, and every time these 2 teams get together, something like this is going to happen, unless every team or every player on one team is somehow sick or something, or they all broken legs or whatnot. But right now, they're healthy, and it doesn't matter that Auburn lost to New Mexico State by 1 million last week. It doesn't matter because they got that magic fairy dust over there in Auburn. Okay, when you got that magic fairy dust and Alabama's coming to town, there's weird stuff going to happen, and that's exactly what we had. Probably the weirdest ending to a game all year. I was standing there in my kitchen. I see this happen. I see him throw this ball. I'm like, what? Did he throw it out the back of the end zone? That's what it looked like. I thought he threw it out the back of the end zone. Sure enough, he didn't. There's Isaiah Bond. Kaboom. Touchdown. Wow. Now, this this barely keeps Alabama's playoff hopes alive because nobody else lost this weekend. They still have hope. They have to beat Georgia, obviously. So it's going to be a very, very fun game next weekend. And Atlanta, I believe, is the SEC championship location. So that is going to be a fun game to watch. For the SEC championship game, we get Georgia, Alabama for what seems like the millionth year in a row. I know we had LSU, Georgia last year, but whatever. So we get Alabama, Georgia. Congrats to those teams. I'm going to be watching that game. Going to be a fun one. We'll have the breakdown here later in the week. Okay, last game I want to talk about. You guys know it. You guys watched it. It's the game, okay? I was taking a sip there for whoever is listening on podcast now. Okay, the game. if you watched the preview, I would like to apologize to the Michigan Wolverine fan base, anybody on Twitter that saw my tweet, anybody that thought I was wrong. You were right. You were right. I was wrong. I'm sorry. It wasn't my best call about this football game. It wasn't my best judgment call in who has the advantage at a particular position. And I really only think I messed up one of these positions. It just so happened to be that this position was very, very important to the football game. And I was wrong. Maybe I let the last couple weeks influence my decision a little too much. And if you're wondering what is happening, why I'm apologizing, well, look no further than who I said had the advantage at quarterback. It was an abysmal call by my part. I said that Ohio State had the advantage at quarterback, and I put my faith in Kyle McCord, which nobody should ever do. You should never put your faith in Kyle McCord ever again. That guy is probably never going to play football again for Ohio State, is what I would seemingly happen to believe based on how he plays and how he throws the football and how abysmal it looks. I'm railing into Kyle McCord. He's a good quarterback, but he's not Ohio State good. Okay, he does not deserve to play at Ohio State. And I was wrong. I really, really thought that he was, I did say that he's not that much better than J.J. McCarthy, but what I didn't realize was how much worse he is than J.J. McCarthy. Now, I do have to give credit to J.J. McCarthy and the Michigan Wolverines, what they did out there on the field yesterday, the resilience, not having your coach, not having your best offensive lineman, losing your best cornerback. A lot of struggles for them in that game. Maybe they had signs, maybe they didn't. Who cares? I don't. They went out there and beat a very good football team, very good defense in the Ohio State Buckeyes. So props to them. They punched their ticket to the college football playoff for the third year in a row. We'll see if they can do anything with it this year. They're probably going to play Washington, Oregon winner, or Texas if they sneak in. That's likely who they're going to play. So we'll see. Going to be a fun game. But J.J. McCarthy, congrats to you, my man. You balled out yesterday. I loved what I saw from you, and maybe it was because you were healthy. That's what Joel Klatt and Gus Johnson were saying on the broadcast. I'm not privy to that information. I didn't know you were banged up last week. You didn't let me know. You didn't text me, give me a call to let me know any of that information, unfortunately. So seemingly he wasn't performing very well the past couple weeks because he was a little banged up. Well, when you get a healthy J.J. McCarthy, he can run around like a little squirrel back there. He's running around just doing his thing. He scrambled for 25 yards on a couple plays. He ran outside the pocket, threw some nice throws, rolling out back across his body, down the line, down the seam. He played very, very good yesterday, and J.J. McCarthy, great quarterback. The throw of the day, though, was that touchdown throw, threading the needle between two linebackers, was absolutely beautiful. It was an incredible throw. I'm not sure how many quarterbacks are making that throw in college football, but J.J. McCarthy is. Now, props to you, J.J., but we got to talk about Kyle and how abysmal this performance was from that man yesterday. Now, okay, I had to take a sip again because I'm pretty upset with him. Now, I get it. He had the 2 interceptions. He threw for a lot of yards. He had some nice throws. I get it. But you cannot make the mistakes he made, guys. You can't make those mistakes in the biggest game of the season for your team and expect to win. You can't do that and expect to win. That's what lost them this football game, are his turnovers. Now, the second one, I get it. You're trying to go win the football game with 30 seconds left, no timeouts. You're trying to go win. I can let that interception slide. Like, whatever. Okay, all right. You had to make a play. You didn't make it, but you tried to make a play. But the first one, the first interception, the first quarter there, what was that, Kyle? What was it? Just me and you. I'm just talking to you. A little bit of tough love here from Ian Fritts. A little bit of tough love. Just talk me through what you saw in that play. Well, Ian, earlier in the week, Tuesday night, I was sitting there, me and Marvin were talking, and I was like, hey, XY, post, center, cut, whatever the play it called, I was like, I'm going to throw it to you, okay? And Marvin's like, whoa. Maybe you wait until you see the coverage, see what they're doing on the defense, and maybe then decide if you're going to throw me the football. He's like, no, Marv, you're Maserati Marv. I'm getting you the football, and we're going to force feed it to you. I'm going to get you the football. Doesn't matter. I'm say hut. Boom. Maserati Marv getting the ball. And I'm going to interject here, Kyle. That's a terrible way terrible way to play football right there. You should not decide on Tuesday night, which he just told me he did. He just told me he decided Tuesday night he was going to throw that ball to Marvin Harrison Jr., and quite frankly, that's what it looked like sitting on my couch watching the game. It looked like, hey, I'm already going to throw the ball to Marvin Harrison. He's a better player than who's got lined up across him. He's a better football player. I'm going to throw it to him no matter what. That's what it looked like. He just told me that's what he did. You can't do that. You can't predetermine against an elite defense like Michigan where you're going with the football. It doesn't work that way. You can't do that. He's got to learn. He's got to learn how to make decisions, how to read coverage. He's got to learn how to do that. Kyle McCord does. But congrats to the Michigan Wolverines going to the college football playoff. Congrats to you guys. We'll see if they win anything this year. They're most likely going to beat Iowa, so I'm already counting them in. And even if they lose to Iowa, I think they're in the college football playoff. So unfortunately for everybody that hates Michigan, not me, you're going to have to see them be in the playoffs for the third straight year. So with that being said, we're going to jump into what I think the college football playoff committee is going to do following Rivalry Weekend, following the end of the regular season. We're going to get into what I think that ranking looks like right now. They're going to take a sip real quick, and then we'll get into it. Okay, I'm only going to do the top 20 because after that really doesn't matter. Even at number 20, I don't think it matters. But it'll be up here. If you're listening on podcast, just follow along the best you can. At number 20, I think the College Football Playoff Committee is going to have the Tennessee Volunteers up one from where they were last week. I don't know what other team they could put there. Maybe Tulane. I'm not entirely sure, but somehow Tennessee is still ranked, and they're still going to be continued to rank after they throttled Vanderbilt this last weekend. Number 19, I think, is going to be one of the biggest movers of the weekend, and that's the North Carolina State. I'm blanking on their mascot name, excuse me, but NC State. They're going to be number 19, up from 22 from last week. I think that is going to be where they're going to be at because they throttled North Carolina. They're a very good football team. I think they're a very good football team. Yeah, I said it. So we're going to move them up 3. Shockingly, we have Oklahoma State at number 18 this week, guys. That's where I think the committee's going to have them. They squeaked out a win against BYU, but a couple teams in front of them lost, and I think they're going to drop below Oklahoma State because they have more losses. Can't argue with that logic, I guess. Right above Oklahoma State, we're going to have the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And if you're on podcast, every time I talk about Notre Dame, I do the pose. So if you hear a little bit of silence when I'm talking about Notre Dame, just know that I do the Fighting Irish pose, okay? So Notre Dame at number 17, up 1 from where they were last week. A lot of teams are just moving up 1. I think it's just a pretty simple week for the committee this week. They're just going to stair-step them a little bit. And then at number 16, we got the Iowa Hawkeyes squeaking out a win against Nebraska. The lowest under in the history of college football hit in that game. I believe it was 24.5, and they scored 24 points. So congrats to anybody that bet the under. Congrats to you guys. Good bet. Okay. And then number 15 in the country this week, I think, is going to be the Louisville Cardinals. I think they're still going to be above Iowa because they have better win than Iowa. So I think they're going to be 15. Maybe Iowa sneaks to 15 and Louisville's at 16 or 17. But I think Louisville's 15, and I think that's where the committee will have them. So we got Louisville dropping 5 spots to number 15. Then right in front of it, we got Arizona. Guys, let's talk about Arizona for a brief second here. What Jed Fish is doing over there in Arizona is one of the most incredible things I've ever witnessed with my own 2 eyes. That's a very, very good football team. I don't think there's 8 teams better than the Arizona Wildcats right now. If we were still doing the what-if poll, not this predictive stuff, which I'll put the what-if poll out there in a couple days, I think Arizona's probably the 9th best team in the country. I really do, and I believe that. Right in front of Arizona, I think the committee's going to have LSU. A lot of these teams, again, like I said, are just going to be moving up 1 because Louisville lost, so just move them up 1. So LSU up 1, OU up 1, and Ole Miss up 1, just knocking on the door of the top 10. Let's go to the top 10 now. I think they're just going to move Penn State up 1. Cha-ching, boom. Penn State's moving up 1. Then we got the Missouri Tigers. I think they're going to move up 1. And then we have the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, I think they're going to have Alabama stay the exact same spot. And I think they're going to have Ohio State right in front of them. Number 2 team in the country, losing to the number 3 team in the country, on the road, tough environment. You don't get blown out. It's a tough game, really good game. I don't think Ohio State's going to drop more than to number 7 in the country. They could quite possibly be ahead of Alabama and Texas. And that's who's number 6 in this poll right here, guys. Number 6 is Texas. I think that's where the committee's going to have them. But that top 5, I think, is just going to be, obviously, Georgia staying at number 1, Michigan going up to number 2, and then you have Washington at number 3, moving up 1, and Florida State at number 4. And then you have Oregon knocking on the door right there at number 5. The committee continues to think Oregon is some better team than the rest of all the teams, except for that loss, even though they don't play anybody. They continue to think Oregon is just the best of all time. So that's the top 5. That's what I think the committee's going to do this week. So we have Georgia, Michigan, Washington, Florida State, and Oregon. All those teams control their own destiny. Georgia wins, Michigan wins, Washington wins, Florida State wins. That's the playoff right there, guys. Georgia wins. Georgia loses. Michigan, I don't think they're going to lose. They're basically in. Washington loses. Florida State loses. Okay, then we're in some conversation. Who's in? But we'll talk about that next weekend. With that being said, let's do the picks recap real quick, and then let's get out of here, okay? We were 11-1 on Rivalry Weekend. That one came from the Ole Miss Mississippi State game that pushed, so I'm not going to factor that into the entire year. So on the year, we're 119-109. That's the record for the entire year. So 10 games above 500. We will take it here at the Ian Fritts Show. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Rivalry Weekend recap. We'll see you later in the week for the conference championship preview. Thank you guys for watching. Again, go over to Spotify, like the Spotify, follow it, subscribe, and continue to like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you later in the week. Love you. Bye.
Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free. It's picked up by Michigan State. Jalen wants Jackson.
25, 30, 35, 40, 45,